Hey, my math party people. Coach Anderson here. If you made it up to this point, then you should be proud of yourself because learning what we're about to show you right now is pretty much reliant on you learning how to factor trinomials, how to factor by grouping, knowing what greatest common factor is, the whole nine. And so watching this video right now means that you're ready to take this on. And if you haven't, and if you're not quite ready, go back. If you're in the course or the program, you'll see that before this video, you have everything that I just talked about with guided practice videos, worksheets, lessons that are recorded, and speed drills. So again, if you're not quite ready, go back to those first, but I'm going to show you how to take care of problems factoring trinomials where A, the leading coefficient, that number, isn't 1. So I've been prepping you for this, I've been talking about this, so now it's time to get into it and really show you that, again, it's just a process, it is simply a procedure, and once you understand the steps, boom, you're good and you're golden. So again, this is called the AC method. And remember, when we're factoring trinomials, typically, we have ax squared plus bx plus c, and I'm going to highlight these, a, b, and c. And typically what we saw, right, was that a term, the number in front of the x squared or k squared or whatever, that number in front was typically 1. There was nothing there. Now I'm going to show you here in this video, what do you do when it's not 1? Let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. Let's have some fun here. So we have a 6 in front, not a 1. What do we do? Well, here's what we do. What we do is this. We're going to go ahead and apply the AC method. Okay, the AC method is when A doesn't equal 1, when that leading term is not 1. Here's step number 1. Here's what you're going to do first. What you're going to do first is, here's why it's called the AC method. Remember this. It's called the AC method because the first step you're going to take is you're going to multiply A times C. That's the first thing you're going to do. Then what you're going to do is, just like with regular factoring trinomials, you're going to find the factors of AC that add up to B. Just like we've done before, right? Except, again, the first step changes because instead of just doing the factors of C that add up to B, you're doing the factors of AC, so the product, A times C, that add up to B. That's the difference there, okay? Then you're going to go ahead and find out which of those factors adds up to B. But here's another difference now. Here's another big difference. Step 3, what you're going to do is you're going to split B into those factors. And again, I'm going to walk you through this problem, so just write this out first, okay? I gotcha, but just write this out first. So step 3, again, we're going to split B into those factors. And then step 4, here's what you're going to do. And this is going to sound familiar if you've been doing this already. Factor by grouping. You have, if you're in the course or the program, you have an entire little series on this. You got the worksheets, the guided practice, the speed drills, it's all there. So we're combining all of the things that we've learned so far to crush this. But you have got to know when you're applying the AC method. And it's right now when, again, that leading coefficient is not 1. It's 6 in this case and other things. But again, here we go, my math party people. Let's have some fun. And if you didn't know, you could also apply the AC method when A is 1. You could. It's just a longer way of doing it. And 1 times anything is just going to be that anything. So again, before I continue, remember this. Multiply A times C. If we're looking at a regular trinomial, like let's go ahead and say, x squared plus, let's say, 6x plus 8. What's A? It's 1. C is 8. So 1 times 8 is still going to be 8. And the factors of 8, 1 and 8, 2 and 4, blah, blah, blah. So again, you have actually already been doing the AC method, but it truly is applicable or really helpful when you do have A bigger than 1. Okay? So let's go ahead and follow the steps, and I'm going to show you why this actually isn't that crazy. Again, as long as you've learned these things, again, greatest common factor, factoring by grouping, you got to go through that first. But here we go. Enough talk. Let's go ahead and show you. So here we go. Let's go ahead and make a black line right here to separate what we're about to do. Okay, so first step, multiply AC. So step number 1. Let me go ahead and highlight this in red. Step number 1, multiply AC. So we have, again, 6n squared minus 11n plus 3. AC is 6 and 3. 6 times 3 is what? It's going to be 18. 6 times 3 is 18. There we go. Step number 2. What we're going to do now is we're just going to find the factors of 18, positive 18, that add up to negative 11. That add up to that right here, that B term right there. So here we go. The factors of 18, right over here. We have 1 times 18, we have 2 times 9, we got 3 times 6, and that's going to be it. So let's ask ourselves again, just like we did with trinomials. Remember this, my math party people. Notice how the B term, again, we're looking for the factors of AC that add up to B. B is negative 11. To multiply to get to a positive 18, you can either have 2 positive numbers or 2 negative numbers. But in this case, if we're trying to add to a negative 11, a negative number, can you add 2 positives to get a negative? No. Can you add 2 negatives to get a negative? Absolutely. A negative plus a negative will always be negative. So what we're saying here is that both numbers have to be negative. So what 2 numbers in this factor group list here, which pair adds to 11, negative 11, when you make them both negative? Right here. Right here. Negative 2, negative 9. Right there, we're good. We have negative 2 and negative 9. We have found the factors of AC that add up to B. So we've done step 1 correct. We've done step 2 correctly. Now let's move into step 3. So this is the part where a lot of people may be like, Coach, what are we doing? Don't worry, I got you. So that was step 2. And my ASVAB party people, just like this free video that you're watching, I have more free materials for you, and there's no excuse for you not to get them. I have a free practice test that comes with video solutions so you can learn from every single mistake. And on top of that, I have a free class on Zoom once a week, every single week for 2 hours. So imagine that. You got more free materials than just this YouTube video right over here. Let's keep pushing forward. Sign up right now, and I'll see you in the next class. Let's get started. Let's look at step 3. Here's what we're doing now, my math party people. What we're doing now is splitting B into these factors. So what I'll do here is I'm going to rewrite 6n squared minus 11n plus 3. What we're going to do is take this negative 11n and split it into those 2 right there. Split it. So we have 6n squared minus 2n minus 9n plus 3. Just like that. We're going to split it into those 2. Just like that. Just like that. Because here's what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next is we're going to go ahead and complete this by factoring by grouping, and we are done. Now, if you don't remember factoring by grouping, again, now's the time to just pause, go back and learn how to factor by grouping, because once you see what's going on there, you'll be like, oh my God, this is actually really straightforward. So here we go. Step 4, factoring by grouping. Here we go. Boom. I'm going to take 6n squared minus 2n, and I'll place that right here. 6n squared minus 2n. Then remember, just like we did in that video where we learned about factoring by grouping, I'm going to put a plus. I'm always going to put a plus because that negative on the 9n is on the 9n. It's not on the entire thing. It's on the 9n. So I'm going to put minus 9n plus 3. So now, here's what I do. Here's how factoring by grouping works. As a refresher, I'm going to go ahead and group these 2, and I'm going to group these 2. Again, I'm going to group them, factor them, and then I'll be done. So what do 6n squared and negative 2n have in common? 6 and 2 both have a 2 in common. N squared and n have an n in common. So what I'll do here is I'm going to pull out, right here, 2n. I'm going to pull out 2n because, again, 6n squared divide a 2n out, we'll have 3n left. Then we have the minus. Don't forget that sign. We didn't switch signs. Then we have 2n divided by 2n. That's just going to be 1. Okay, great. Now, if you remember with factoring by grouping, if you remember correctly, this right here should match the other parentheses that we're going to have right there in a moment. It should match. If it doesn't, it's either not factorable or you didn't do something right. So here we go. What we're going to do next is we're going to notice that we have ourselves a negative 9n plus 3. Typically, you want that leading term in that parentheses to be positive, so I will factor out that negative. I will factor it out. So I'll have the minus factored out. And I see that 9n and 3, they have a 3 in common. 3 can go into both 3 and 9. So I'll factor out that 3 and look at what happens now. Negative 9n divided by negative 3, that's going to be a positive 3n. A positive 3 divided by a negative 3 is a negative 1. Look at this, my math party people. Look at this. This looks pretty clean, right? What do we notice? The 3n minus 1, 3n minus 1, it is there for both. And like we said, if we have a factor or a common factor amongst two terms, this is my first term, this is my second term, they each have 3n minus 1 in common. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out that 3n minus 1 right there. I'm going to pull that out. And I'm going to leave inside of the parentheses, because again, I'm just like pretending that this is a whole big group. I pull out the 3n minus 1 right here. And what's left inside? Well, we have ourselves right here, 2n minus 3. And that's exactly what I'll pull out. 2n minus 3. Booyah, we're good, we're solid, and there's our final answer. It's going to be 3n minus 1 times 2n minus 3. And what's the correct answer going to be? Right here, A. The order is different. It's 2n minus 3 first, and then the 3n minus 1, but it's still the same thing. And so my math party people, we're going to go ahead and go through a few more examples here. I know I took my time going through this first one, because obviously what we need to do is make sure that we know how to, work through the nooks and crannies of this. So now what I'll do is I'm going to go through the rest of these. No, not all of them, but perhaps I'll go through about 3-4 more examples and we'll be straight. So before we continue, I'm going to zoom on in right over here. Write that down. The AC method, those are the 4 steps. Multiply A times C. Find the factors of AC that add up to B. Split B into those factors, and then factor by grouping, and you're done. That is the AC method. And again, being very, very clear here, that's where A is not equal to 1. When you have a number bigger than 1, like a 2x squared, or a 5x squared, or a 7k squared, or whatever, when you have that leading term bigger than 1, this is exactly what you do. So hopefully you had enough time to pause the video, take your example down, and do your thing. I'm going to go ahead and copy this again here. Copy all that, along with that stick that I made. Let me go ahead and just grab all that, all this, duplicate this, and I'm going to bring this down. Again, this is the AC method. AC method. So I'm going to write that all down right there. Duplicate that. Not all of that. Whoops. Let me go ahead and just this. Oh, I see why. Oh, it came into the space. Okay, I see. No worries. So I'll just go ahead and take that out, and I'll just write AC method right over here. The AC method. I really hope you guys appreciate this video because, again, like this is a huge concept, but I really think that we can all handle this for sure. So with that said, my math party people, let's get into it. So we have ourselves step number 1. We are going to go ahead and multiply AC together. Let me zoom on in here. Hopefully that's enough room. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and multiply A and C together. AC. So notice that this is a negative. Be very, very aware of your signs. Be very aware of your signs. But 18 times 4, what is that going to be? If you need to go ahead and do that by hand, sure. The answer here is going to be 72, but that's fine if you don't see that. 8 times 4 is 32. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 3 is 7. So we have 72. So here, AC equals 72. Boom. And here's another cool thing that we know. We know that one of the factors is 18 and 4. One of the factor pairs. 18 times 4, we literally just did this, right? Or right up there. Literally just did this. So remember, AC is not just 72, it is negative 72. Because remember, we multiplied a positive 4 with a negative 18. The signs matter, okay? Why do the signs matter again? Because of this. When you're finding the factors of AC that add up to the B term, the sign matters because you now have a negative product. The only way you can get a negative is if you have a positive times a negative. Only way. And so, when you look at B, when you look at the things that have to add up to B, just take a look, observe. Like, look at how cool this is, how easy this can be. You have a positive 21. So when you're adding a positive number and a negative number to get a 21, a positive 21, what do you know? Which number has to be the bigger one, the positive one or the negative? The positive has to be the bigger number, because think about it like this. A positive number added with a smaller negative stays positive. It stays positive. So you know that when you find the factor pair here, the difference has to be 21. When you subtract them, it has to be 21. And the bigger number is the positive one. So let's go ahead and get our work done here. The factors of negative 72. Again, the bigger number is always the positive one. So we can have a negative 1 times 72. We can have a negative 2 times 36, because 72 divided by 2 is 36. We can have negative 3 potentially, could we? Yeah, we could, because if you do the math here, divide 36 by 3, you get 12. Bring the 2 back, 2 times 12 is 24. So we have 3 times 24. And if you didn't know about that trick, go on to the video about finding greatest common factor or factor pairs. I'll take care of you there. Next up, we know we have negative 4 times 18. But we actually don't even need to continue my math party, people. Absolutely do not. The reason I know this is because I already found a pair that has a difference of 21. Right there. There's the pair that when you do 24 minus 3, that's positive 21. I found it. We're good. We're good. And so we can keep going now. We have found it. Now we can go into step 3. Step 3 is, again, split. Let me actually just highlight everything accordingly. That way you can feel good about yourself here. Step 3, we're going to split B into those factors, negative 3 and a positive 24. So step 3, I'll go ahead and do over here. Let me go ahead and erase this. Let me just move this over here. And I'm going to write everything out again. We have 4x squared plus 21x minus 18. And what I will do is I will split this 21x into positive 24x and minus 3x. Or I can do minus 3x and plus 24x. Either way is completely fine. So here's what I'll do. We have 4x minus 3x plus 24x minus 18. Sweet. Now we're ready to factor by grouping. We'll go ahead here and group this here and group this there. Since it's positive, we can go ahead and just ignore that sign. If it was a negative, remember, you gotta bring that sign with you. So with that from here, what I'll do now is remind myself that I have that 4x squared, so I don't mess up. But now I'm gonna factor this. What is in common between 4x squared and minus 3x? They each have x. They don't have anything else. 4 and 3 don't share anything, so we can only pull out an x. So once we pull out the x, 4x squared turns into 4x, minus 3x turns into minus 3. Okay, great. Up next, what do we have over here? Well, what I know is that 24x and negative 18, they both share a 6. So I'm going to go ahead and divide each of them by 6, factoring that out. And I can say over here, 24x divided by 6 is 4x. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Keep that negative. Ah, look at that. Look at that. These are the same factors that we were expecting. And now we're factoring by grouping, step 4. And really quick, before we continue my math party, people, I know you're enjoying this. And you can have thousands of problems just like this in our program. In our program, you have 4 main things to help you succeed and more. But mainly, in our course, you're going to get access to recorded lessons. You're going to get access to guided practice just like this. Worksheets that you can print out and try or keep them online. And lastly, speed drills to raise your confidence. That way, when you take the test, there's no test anxiety. There's no pressure because you've been timed before, you know what to do, and that's the feeling that we want. And all of that's included in our program and more. So take a brief moment, click the link here in this video or in the description to learn about the program, and then reach out to us if you have any questions. Sign up now, let's get going, and let's get back to the problem. Step 4, factor by grouping. Because now we can go ahead and pull out the 4x minus 3. Because they both share the 4x minus 3, so we can pull that out of both. We can factor that out, leaving on the inside the x plus 6. And there it is. We have 4x minus 3 times x plus 6. That is our final answer, and we are good. So our final answer is where? It is right here. C. And we are good. So it seems like a lot, right? It seems like a lot, but it's really coming down to 4 main steps. Multiply AC. find the factors of AC that add up to B. Then from there, split up B into those factors. And then factor by grouping, and you're done. If you want to check your work, guess what? You can go ahead and literally just take this right over here and check your work. Let me just go and write it again. I'm going to check my work for you, and then we're going into another example here because I got your back, my math party people. Let's go. 4x times x, 4x squared. 4x times 6, positive 24x. Negative 3 times x, negative 3x. Negative 3 times 6, negative 18. Oh, don't that look familiar? That's literally what we just had right over here when we split it up. Right over here when we split it up, look at where it went to. Again, we're just working backwards, right? So then combine like terms, and we have 4x squared plus 21x minus 18, and we're good. So my math party people, again, like this is some cool stuff. We can confirm that the answers are correct by checking our work. Let's go into another problem here so I can show you again. Like this is something that's very, very doable. Number 4. I'll do this one and one more and we're done. So here we have 6n squared minus 13n minus 5. So here's what I'll do. And that is a thunderstorm. So here's what I'll do next, my math party people. What I see here is that we have 6 and negative 5. 6 times negative 5. So step 1, AC equals negative 30. Step 2, we're going to go ahead and find the factors of negative 30 that add up to negative 13. Plain and simple. So here we go. So negative 30, let's go ahead and do that here. So here's what we know. Before I even do the factors, just pay attention to what you should be looking for. If I'm factoring a negative number, one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. Because you can't do 2 positives to get a negative or 2 negatives to multiply to get a negative. It's only when you have a positive and a negative, opposite signs. So with that said, let's get into it here. We know that we're going to have opposite signs. The difference is going to be negative. So that tells me that the negative number is the bigger number. The bigger number has to be negative. You can't do a big positive and a small negative added together to get a negative 13. It has to be a bigger negative with a smaller positive. So what I know is that when I'm writing my factor pairs, 1 times negative 30. Again, the bigger number is going to be the negative one. So could I have 2 times negative 15? That's it right there. I found it. I found it right away because, again, the difference is 13, but negative. The difference is 13, but negative because the bigger number is negative. You've got to be able to look out for these little things, my party people, because now that we have it, step 3, we're going to go ahead and split it up into those pairs. So we start off with 6n squared minus 13n minus 5, and then we go ahead and split that negative 13n into 6n squared, and then in green, I'll split it up here. We'll do 6n squared plus 2n minus 15n minus 5. And I'll go ahead and include a plus right here in the middle because, again, we are going to group them. And when it comes to grouping with a negative in front, you want to make sure you group the whole term. You don't want just the number and then leave the negative out of it. That's not the actual term. You want to group the sign with the term. And so there we have that, my math party people. There we have that here. And now let's go ahead and factor by grouping. Step 4. Step 4 now, let's get into it. 6n squared and 2n, they each have 2 and an n in common. Because 6 can be divided by 2 and so can 2. So here we have 2n. And then on the inside, well, 6n squared divided by 2n is 3n left over. And then 2n divided by 2n is positive 1. From there, we're going to go ahead and take care of this over here. They're both negative, but we have a negative leading, so I'm going to pull out a negative, so minus. 15 and 5 both have 5 in common, so minus 5. And then that's it. So negative 15n divided by negative 5 is a positive 3n. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is a positive 1. Boom, that's it. We're good. We have the groups here, and we have the common factor amongst both terms. So we will pull out the 3n plus 1. We will factor it out. So we will have 3n plus 1 multiplied by 2n minus 5. We have 2n minus 5 left over, and that's what comes out. And so with that said, my math party people, there it is. We have 3n plus 1, 2n minus 5. Answer A is the right one. And see, like this isn't terrible, right? This isn't terrible. It can be a lot of fun as long as we are, again, taking the appropriate steps. I'll do one more for us, okay? I'll do one more for us because I know you're getting excited and this is awesome. I want to make sure that you feel real good about this. So let's go ahead and say we're looking at, number 5. I'll do a difficult one. This one looks big because we have 6 times 35. But nonetheless, my party people, same result. We're still going to be able to do this the right way. So step number 1, right over here, find out what AC is. So AC is going to be 6 times negative 35. If you want to do the math there, 35 times 6. That's basically just saying 35 times 2 times 3, which is 210. But nevertheless, when you do the math here, you will get 210. 5 times 6 is 30. Plug the 0 in, put the 3. 2 times 6 is 18. Bring the 3, you get 21. So we have ourselves 210. But remember, it's a negative 210 because that was a negative times a positive. That's going to matter because, remember, you're now looking for the factors of negative 210 that add up to negative 11. So what does this tell me again? What does this tell me? My party people, what this tells me is that, hey, the only way to multiply to get to a negative 210 is by having a positive and a negative being multiplied. And when you look at the clue, the B term, the negative 11, that tells me that, hey, the bigger number is negative. When you add a positive and a negative and you get a negative result, the bigger number is negative. It has to be. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it here because we're going to go ahead and say, hey, we have 1 times negative 210 because, again, hey, one of them has to be negative. Then here, 2 times what? Well, that'll be 105, and that'll be negative if that's the case. But notice how these smaller multiplications, they don't have a difference of 11. So let's keep going here. What else can I work with? And if you have to write down all the factors to see it, do your thing. Take your time. We got 3 times 70, and that'll be a negative 70. Still not a difference of 11. Can we do a 4? Well, no, we can't because we have a 2, and then we have an odd number, so we know 4 won't work. And again, go back to my lesson on factoring and finding greatest common factors and factor pairs. I teach you all this. Can we do 5? Absolutely. Absolutely, because you know that 5 can go into 105 or 210 or 70. It can go into all of them. And before we continue, my math party people, really quick before we continue, I know that you're enjoying this video and I want to make sure that more people can enjoy these videos just like you. So if you wouldn't mind, just take a quick second, like this video, comment on it, just showing some appreciation, showing what you learned, and then make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that way when we come out with new videos, typically every day, you can be right there on the spot to catch on to them. So help us help others ace the ASVAB. I'm Anderson. Let's keep going here. So here, 5 times what? Well, in this case, that's going to be 5 times 42. And again, if you didn't know that quite right away, you got to do some testing. You got to do your thing. Divide 5 into 210 and you'll see what I mean. Can we do a 6 here? Obviously. We just had 6 over there. So we have 6 times negative 35. Still not a difference of 11. We got to keep going. So we'll keep going here. And I know this seems tough, but it's not that crazy. We can do 7 times negative 30. Will 8 work in here? No. Will 9 work? No. Will 10 work? Yeah. 10 times negative 21. Oh, well, look at that. There's a difference of 11. 10 and 21 are 11 numbers apart. That's going to work, and we are good. We can guarantee that we're good now. So there we go. We finally found it. The factors that add up to B. That was step 2. Step 3. We are now going to go ahead and do what? Split B into those factor pairs and then factor by grouping. So right here, step number 3, we'll go ahead and split 6n squared minus 11n minus 35. We're going to split it into 6n squared, and it's going to be plus 10n plus negative 21n minus 35. Notice what I'm doing here. I'm going to keep the negative with that term and just put a plus right there. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting, but this is useful for the grouping part. So with that, I'll group these two, and do my thing. So what I see here, 6n squared and 10n, they share a 2n. And when I factor that out, we will have 3n plus 5 left over. After that, we're going to go ahead now and take care of the other one. Negative 21n minus 35, I'm going to factor out a negative. 21 and 35 have 7 in common, so negative 7 comes out. Negative 7 comes out. Negative 21n divided by negative 7 is a positive 3. And then negative 35 divided by negative 7 is a positive 5. Let me change the color here to make sure that everything stays exactly how I prepped for it to be done. Notice how we have the same factor. That's what you need to see so you can factor that 3n plus 5 out of there. So boom, 3n plus 5. Now we're factoring by grouping here. So we have 3n plus 5 times the remaining 2n minus 7. And there we have it, my math party people. We're good. There's our answer. And there it is. We see that it's going to be 2n minus 7 times 3n plus 5. Boom. I know it seems like a lot, my party people. I know. But with practice, I'm telling you, these 4 steps are not terribly crazy. When you realize that you're trying to factor a trinomial and the leading coefficient is bigger than 1 or not 1, dude, go straight into the AC method. Multiply the A and C terms, the numbers. Then find the factors of AC that add up to B. Split B up into those factors. And lastly, factor by grouping. And there it is, my math party people. So I really hope that this video is one of the more exciting ones for you. It's about 30 minutes long at this point, so I know that there's a lot to go through and a lot of practice to be had, but that's why I'm here. If you're in the course of the program, make sure to move up next, where you're going to see a worksheet. You can practice this, practice with the answer key. Then on top of that, the next one, you'll see that you'll have speed drills for the AC method as well. And once you're done with that, my math party people, well, at that point, you are ready to get into solving quadratic equations, because you now know how to factor trinomials, you know how to factor difference of squares, you know how to factor by grouping, you know how to factor with AC method. So then, solving equations, you're ready to go. So keep moving forward, math party people. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Feel free to reach out, because you know I got your back. Let's keep it going, my math party people. Let's raise that score, and let's have fun. I'll see you in the next video. And before you go, if you like what you saw and you want to raise your score with thousands of practice problems just like that, so you can lower that test anxiety, raise that confidence, go to this link right here to check out the full program. There's a video that shows you exactly how it works, but you're going to get lessons, guided practice, worksheets, speed drills, and everything that you need to feel supported from day one all the way until you pass. Again, I'm Coach Anderson, and I'll see you soon.